Most of us live our lives believing we have time. We do not know how much time we have, but we assume the future is there. We assume next summer is coming. We assume the vacation, the retirement, the graduation, the anniversary, and the ordinary Tuesday afternoon are all waiting for us somewhere ahead. Then one day, someone sits across from you and tells you something that changes your relationship with the future. A metastatic cancer diagnosis changes more than a treatment plan. It changes your relationship with time itself. Today, we are not talking about death. We are not even talking primarily about cancer. We are talking about uncertainty. And even if you don't have metastatic cancer, I would still encourage you to listen. Why? Because metastatic cancer is one of the most misunderstood experiences in all of healthcare. Understanding it can help you better support the people living with it, appreciate the difficult decisions they face, and see the courage it takes to build a meaningful life when certainty is no longer guaranteed. The more we understand that reality, the better we can support those who are living it every day. We are talking about what happens when life moves into a category our culture does not understand. Not quote unquote healthy, not dying. Something in between. What does it do to a person to live indefinitely with uncertainty? What happens when you still have a life to live, but no longer have the certainty you once assumed came with it? This episode's topic is about living with metastatic, aka stage 4, aka chronic cancer. Let's talk about it. This is the After Cancer Podcast. I'm your host, oncology physical therapist, Dr. Leslie Waltke. For more than 3 decades, I've walked alongside people living with and beyond cancer. Whether you are a survivor, a caregiver, or part of a clinical team who cares for them, I'm glad you're here. Because life after a cancer diagnosis can feel uncharted and confusing, even when you have a great medical team. In this podcast, evidence, empathy, and the real human experience come together to help you navigate the physical, emotional, and practical realities of cancer and the life that comes after. This is the After Cancer Podcast, rooted in medicine, spoken in human. Hello, After Cancer community, and welcome to episode 16, When Certainty Disappears, Living with Metastatic or Chronic Cancer. This episode is brought to you in partnership with Cure. Here we are talking about living with metastatic cancer, again, also known as stage 4 cancer or chronic cancer. Metastatic cancer, in most, but not all types of cancer, is incurable. If you have listened to this podcast for a while, you know I am less interested in labels and more interested in lived experiences. There are many places you can go to learn more about what metastatic cancer is, and I encourage you to do that. Today here, though, I want to talk about what it means to build a life when certainty is no longer available. Metastatic cancer often places people in a category our culture does not understand. Society understands healthy. Society understands sick. Society understands dying. But many people living with metastatic disease are none of those things. They may be working, taking care of parents, raising children, traveling, exercising, attending soccer games, planning vacations, and showing up to work every day. At the same time, they are receiving treatment, undergoing scans, living with progression risk, and carrying the knowledge that their disease is incurable. That is a unique psychological space. Currently, I am working with a woman with metastatic cancer. If you saw her at the grocery store, you would have no idea. She works full-time, she attends school events, she laughs easily, she exercises regularly. Yet every few months, her life narrows down to one appointment on the calendar, a scan, then the waiting, then the results, then a temporary exhale, then life resumes until the next scan appears on the horizon. She once told me, "Everyone else forgets I have cancer, but I never get to. That sentence is powerful. I encourage you to go back to episode 8, where we talked about the powers and the complexities of the 53 million people on planet Earth that are alive today with a history of a cancer diagnosis. Because there we learn that the definition of a cancer survivor is anyone who has been diagnosed with cancer from the time of diagnosis through the rest of their life. So people living with stage 4 cancer are cancer survivors. Full stop. Where it can feel a bit fuzzy is in the definition of cancer survivorship. Cancer survivorship is the phase that is typically described as after the primary treatment for cancer is concluded. So where exactly do people living with metastatic disease fit? They often live in a space that does not have a comfortable label. And human beings like categories. We like labels. Categories help us make sense of the world. But metastatic disease often refuses to stay inside a category. When treatment ends after early stage cancer, there is often an expectation that life should begin moving forward. With metastatic disease, though, treatment may continue indefinitely. Life does move forward, but it moves forward differently. People begin asking questions like, am I a patient? Am I a survivor? Am I someone living with a chronic illness? Am I all of these things? And the answer is often maybe yes. Then there is what I call the endless waiting room. Most people think treatment has a finish line. Metastatic disease often does not. Life becomes scan, wait, results, treatment, repeat, scan, wait, results, treatment, repeat. The challenge is sustaining yourself through years of uncertainty. A man with metastatic prostate cancer once described it to me this way. He said, I am not afraid of hard things. I just get tired of not knowing. I think many listeners living with metastatic disease will understand exactly what he meant. Human beings are remarkably resilient when we understand the rules. Uncertainty is different. Uncertainty asks us to keep functioning while the answers remain incomplete. Many people divide life into before the scan and after the scan, not because they are obsessed, not because they are negative, but because scans influence everything. Should we book the trip? Should we commit to the project? Should we make plans 6 months from now? Should we buy the tickets? The scan becomes a waypoint around which life is organized. Here is another challenge for people living with metastatic disease. And that challenge is the loneliness of looking well. Some people with metastatic disease look remarkably healthy. They may have energy, they may have all their hair, they may be active. They may have no visible signs of illness. For example, each year I help run a triathlon training program for women cancer survivors. And every year we have people on the team with metastatic cancer come walking or running across the finish line. In situations like this, friends, coworkers, and even family members can inadvertently begin treating them as though cancer is no longer relevant. Yet the person living with metastatic disease carries the awareness of mortality every day. Everyone else may forget, they cannot. And there's a strange isolation that can come from appearing well while carrying burdens no one else can see. We often think illness should be visible. When it is not visible, people make assumptions. They assume everything is okay. They assume fear is gone. They assume pain is gone. They assume uncertainty has disappeared. But uncertainty can remain present even on good days. I also want to talk about the planning paradox. Nobody prepares people for this. And rarely can anyone help you with a solid answer to things like, do I buy the house? Do I retire? Do I take the trip? Do I spend the money? Do I save the money? Do I start a business? Do I change careers? Most of us make decisions assuming a future timeline. Metastatic cancer complicates those assumptions. A patient once told me she spent months debating whether to renovate her kitchen. It sounds trivial until you realize what she was really asking. She was asking whether she should continue investing time, energy, and money into a future she could not fully predict. Eventually, she did decide to do the renovation. And unfortunately, her disease progressed more quickly than anyone anticipated. Looking back, some of those final months of her life were consumed by contractors, decisions, disruptions, and expenses she later wished she had spent differently. On the flip side, a dear friend of mine was diagnosed with metastatic cancer and given a life expectancy of roughly 18 months. She and her family prioritized experiences. They traveled, they created memories. They spent much of retirement savings because they believed time was short. That was 15 years ago. She is still here. And now she faces a completely different challenge, living with financial realities she never expected to encounter because she planned for 18 months, not 15 years. Neither of these women made a bad decision. Both made thoughtful decisions based on the information they had at the time. That is uncertainty. And I think that illustrates one of the hardest truths about living with metastatic disease. Sometimes uncertainty is not about finding the right answer. Sometimes there simply isn't a right answer. There is only the best decision you can make with the information you have, the values you hold, and the life you are trying to live. So now let's talk about health and function. One of the subtle messages people sometimes receive after a metastatic diagnosis is that things like strength, exercise, and rehab somehow matter less now. That if cancer is going to remain part of the story, then strength, endurance, mobility, and physical function become secondary concerns. I would argue that it is completely, exactly the opposite. So let me put my cancer rehab hat on here for a moment, because for many people living with metastatic disease, function may matter more than ever. Because living with metastatic disease often means living with ongoing treatment, more uncertainty. The goal is not simply to fight the disease. The goal is to stay strong enough to tolerate more treatment and have access to more treatment options. The goal is to keep living a life while managing disease. And that requires energy. That requires strength. That requires endurance. That requires physical reserve. The stronger and more physically resilient your body is, the better equipped it is to tolerate treatment, recover from treatment, manage side effects, maintain independence, and continue participating in the things that matter most to you. Cancer rehabilitation is not about creating elite athletes. It is about helping people stay out of the hospital when possible. It is about reducing fatigue. It is about managing pain. It is about preserving mobility. It is about maintaining independence. It is about helping people continue doing the things that make a life feel like a life. The reality is that many people living with metastatic disease will spend years navigating treatment. And during those years, the ability to walk farther, recover faster, move more confidently, and maintain physical function can have an enormous impact on quality of life. Here's a key point to highlight. The presence of metastatic disease does not erase the body's ability to adapt. Muscles still respond to exercise. The cardiovascular system still responds to movement. Balance can still improve. Strength can still improve. Endurance can still improve. And those improvements are not just about physical performance. They are about preserving options, preserving participation, and preserving the ability to keep showing up for your own life. Uncertainty has a way of clarifying priorities. Many people living with metastatic cancer become extraordinarily clear about what matters. Relationships matter, experiences matter, presence matters, meaning matters, time matters. Interestingly, psychologists have long observed that human beings often become happier not when they eliminate uncertainty, but when they align their lives with their values. We spend enormous energy chasing certainty. Yet certainty has never really been available to any of us. Yet the difference is that metastatic disease makes that reality impossible to ignore. The truth is that none of us are guaranteed a timeline. But those not living with stage 4 cancer get to pretend otherwise. They get to kick the can down the road. They get to believe that that is never going to happen to them. People living with metastatic disease are often forced into a conversation that the rest of society spends tremendous energy avoiding. And yet, despite all of this, life continues. People continue falling in love. They continue raising children. They continue attending graduations. They continue laughing with friends. They continue building businesses. They continue creating art. They continue showing up for life. That may be one of the most profound lessons of all. Most people think the opposite of dying is living. But for many people with metastatic disease, the opposite of dying is certainty. And certainty may be the one thing they lose first. The challenge becomes learning how to build a meaningful life without it. That does not mean pretending everything is fine. It does not mean toxic positivity. It does not mean denying fear. Fear is real, grief is real, loss is real. But so is joy, so is purpose, so is connections. As we begin to wrap up today, I want to speak directly to anyone living with metastatic cancer. You do not need to earn your humanity through optimism. You do not need to inspire anyone. You do not need to perform courage or stay quiet for the comfort of others. You are allowed to have difficult days. You are allowed to speak your truth. You are allowed to feel uncertain. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to kick, scream, cry, and swear. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to say, "This is so effing unfair." And if some days all you can do is make it through the day, that is enough. But you are also allowed to keep making plans. You are allowed to keep pursuing goals. You are allowed to keep participating in your own life. And that is hard work. I can't even begin to imagine. And there is no perfect way to do it. But do remember, the future may be uncertain, but today still belongs to you. If you are living with stage 4 metastatic or chronic cancer, I would love to hear your responses to these reflection prompts. Number 1, what decision in your life is uncertainty making difficult right now? Number 2, what is one thing people misunderstand about living with metastatic disease? And number 3, what advice would you give to someone who is newly diagnosed with metastatic cancer? Again, I would love to see your answers and ideas and thoughts. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who may need it. Please subscribe to the After Cancer podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you are a healthcare professional, consider how we can better support people living in the land between certainty and uncertainty. Coming up in episode 17 of the After Cancer podcast, we tackle one of the most important topics in modern oncology: medical misinformation in our culture. Why does misinformation spread so easily? Why is it currently so rampant? Why are smart people drawn into bad information? And how can patients and families evaluate claims in a world overflowing with opinions? We will explore all of that in the next episode, 17. And before we wrap up, a quick shout out to my friends over at ABCD After Breast Cancer Diagnosis. ABCD provides free, virtual, personalized emotional support by matching anyone impacted by breast cancer with a trained volunteer mentor who has a similar lived experience. You can learn more about getting support or about becoming a mentor at abcdbreastcancersupport.org. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, cancer can change people, but it should never erase them. The future may look different than expected, but meaning, purpose, connection, and participation remain available. And I wish you the strength to fully engage in the life that is still in front of you. Until next time, you belong here. You are not alone. And yes, exercise like your life depends on it, because it does. Peace out. Let's talk again soon.